I'm having a problem now with my daughters because here, in the relationship that I've had with my wife and so forth, so I finally, found out how to relate and how to properly love her.
What
and
kind
so
of
forth.
trouble are you having with daughters? As if I didn't know.
It's a problem of how they relate to other men, and here, how I don't want to try to control them, but yet I want to guide them and show them, show them that, hey, don't be hypnotized by the rest of the world because, like I've seen them when they go out.
But
on
they can't
dates
hear you. The worldly hypnosis is stronger than you are.
Yeah, it must be because I went to
Because if you're of the world like the world is, and before the time of awakening you are of the world like the world is,
and that's what I was.
not only are you an example of what the world is, so you set them up for the world, right?
I did.
But then when you try to influence them, to counter-influence the world, they see your influence. You see the effort of it, where the world is so effortless in its influence. It's like a man gets caught up with his, a son gets caught up with his girlfriend, and the mom sees, because she knows what women are like, she knows what the girl is up to, the boy doesn't. But the girl's got an effortless, access to this boy's mind.
Yes.
But mom doesn't have the same influence. Mom's losing her power to this other woman. She doesn't have the same powers. She only had it for her husband, right? She can't use it here. Now she starts to use a little effort. Oh, can't you see what this woman is doing to you? The boy sees the influence, but he doesn't see the influence of the girl. And who do you think? It only drives the boy to the girl, right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you have to have in order to be a counter-influence to the influence? It's got to be the influence of no influence.
No influence?
You see, because if it's the influence of influence, that's what's wrong with the world. The world is influencing.
That's what I struggle so hard because here as a parent, like I said, I know I've done a lot of wrong because I'm a very strong person, I have a lot of anger that comes out and so forth.
That's not strength, though.
That's true. I mean, that's the wrong kind of strength. And I know that I've, tried to guide them in a real, tight-fisted type of way. And now that I realize what I've done, I want to draw back, but yet I want them.
See, it's a tough situation.
I want to know where can I stand as a parent and say, okay, this is where I draw the line. Because I'm living in a family with 3 women, and they're very strong-willed, and here I'm battling, trying to...
No wonder you're still alive.
The war.
I was looking at your body shape. It just did seem to suffer. So.
Yeah. So that's that's the thing that I'm struggling with. Is where can I draw?
Well, look, I can only answer you in a generality, but it's a very powerful one, and that is that I can only point to my own experience. I have one daughter. And my daughter has such love for me. She, at one time she thought I was going to die, a few years ago, and she was all broken up about it. I said, look, Diane, you've got to let me go, right? Now, don't you see that you have a husband now, and he has to finish off the work I began, and he's a good man, and you have to work out your problems with him. But if you do that, you see, and I see you all broken up, and wherever I'm going to be very disturbed about that. You've got to let go. So I've helped to let her go, but she was a little bit caught up with her dad, and then there comes this maturing, this experience where she thought she was going to lose me, and now she has sort of gone beyond that. The thing is the point I'm going to try to make here is that my daughter has such perfect love for me that if I was to say to her, to the man she was going to marry that she loved, don't marry that man because he's not right for you, she'd drop him like a hot potato because she'd believe me. Because she's always known that I've always saved her from herself and from wrong influences, including mom. Saved her sanity. And I've never failed her. And that I've always had the best interest in her heart, and I've always tried to guide her to that and to herself. And so therefore there's a bond between us that is not hypnotic. Somewhat, because there's this father-child relationship, but that dissolves. But there still leaves this other. To know that I would not, that she could actually trust my perception when she can't trust, when she doesn't know for sure herself. Although for the most part, she doesn't call me about things because she's a very strong-minded person and sees things for herself, which I brought up to be. But on those conditions where there's these influences, I could step in and say something and it would count, but it would count without effort because of that unbroken bond of fidelity. So I've never failed her. No, I mean never failed her.
And that's where I have failed them, and I know that I don't have the full trust.
But then you have a failing self that is influenced by the world. See, and therefore it can't counter-influence the world. Don't you see that? That's why it's so important for you all to be, if you'll pardon the way I put it, perfect. I mean, being of perfect accord, being of perfect intent. That's perfect enough. Because children can see your intent. If your intent is pure, they can see through your weaknesses. I've known women whose fathers were alcoholics, driven to be alcoholics by their crazy women, because they just didn't know how. They weren't skilled in dealing with what, the Saddam Hussein in their life. They just were decent men, and they just didn't know, they weren't trained in dealing with it. The decency is still in there. And even though the man comes home drunk at night and swears and rants and raves, the little girl looks at this and sees that Dad is in trouble and can't help himself. He doesn't know what he's up, he doesn't know how to deal with it. Her perception, her awareness, her love of God, actually, the truth, her own love of God has given her perception. And she sees through it all. She sees that her mother setting up her father for this and has love for her father. That's what saves her. Now the father, even though he's a drunk, see, and now she's getting caught up with something, and the father will come up and say, look, daughter, I know I haven't really been a good father, but I wish you wouldn't go out with this guy or do this or do that. She loved that. She's not relating to the drunk, she's not relating to anything else, she's relating to the purity of his spirit that is kind of lost, but see what I'm saying? Even under those conditions it will work. What I'm saying is, that's what you've got to have.